and welcome back to another episode of We Read It One Night, the podcast where two sisters chat about the romance novels that changed our lives. You asked, begged, and pleaded, and we answered. Here's part 2 of Eclipse by Stephenie Meyer. We're getting everybody's backstories today, and you guessed it, Jacob is worse than ever. Also, Taylor Swift may be gay. Drop us a rating and review. Don't forget to send in your listener suggestions, and enjoy the show.
Hello.
I have come prepared with an intro topic to talk about today. Comes to mind because Leah Clearwater in this book is very gay. And after I finished reading the book, I came upon a TikTok about gay Taylor Swift. And so
Gaylers.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm saying gay Taylor Swift for the people not familiar with the lingo. Yes, called the Gaylers. And I would just like to emphasize how much that's definitely true. Like, she's bisexual. She's not gay. She's bisexual. I believe that she actually likes Joe Alwyn. But I also firmly believe that she dated Carly Kloss. And I also firmly believe that she's already come out via her music. But because the straights, and this is what the TikTok said, the straights don't know gay subculture and gay language. There's symbols and words that you only know if you're part of the queer subculture.
They know because they're being told, but they just don't want to hear it. It's just turtles on turtles on turtles here, but looking at, if you look at her old Tumblr posts and mine, it's just literally wow, your boobs look so good.
Me pretending that I was just complimenting girls. I just just objectively thought girls were pretty and no other deeper meaning associated with that. Me and Taylor Swift are the same person. Anyway, Taylor Swift is gay. Let us know your thoughts. Write in. Are you a gayler or are you hopelessly naive? Let us know.
Hetlers can stay away.
Is that what they're called?
No, not I mean, there's the gaylers, and then there's people who, there's fans who, but the hetlers are specifically no, she's heterosexual. Why? How dare you? I don't think they would call themselves hetlers.
I'm gonna be honest. I just feel that's not our podcast audience. No. Listeners.
No.
I think that you're I think we've established ourselves as a pretty gay podcast, gay adjacent podcast.
Yeah, I definitely don't think so.
I don't know why you're here if you're not at least open to the idea of Taylor Swift being bisexual. So, I mean, you're still welcome, but just know that you're wrong. Listen, I love you. My respect for you is a little bit diminished, but still glad to have you here listening.
Are you eating more soup? Wow.
I'm finishing my soup.
Delicious. I made a delicious potato leek soup today, everyone. Courtesy of the Pioneer Woman, who I am rapidly becoming obsessed with. A month ago when we were shopping for Edie, the cat, we were at Walmart and I just happened to walk by the mug aisle. I think we were looking for food bowls for her, and this beautiful mug caught my eye. It was just perfect, spoke to me. It was it's just a beautiful mug. Allison, maybe you can we put it on our Instagram story, and it's pink, it has flowers, and I was I need this mug. Who made the mug, Allison? The Pioneer Woman. And then I brought it home and you were oh my God, that mug. And I was they had a blue one that was the same vibe. You have a Pioneer Woman mug, and now we have Pioneer Woman potato leek soup with our Pioneer Woman mugs.
You mentioned Evie. I don't know. Have we said on the podcast
yes,
we got a cat?
Yes.
When?
I think so. I could have sworn you said.
I don't know that we ever said it.
We have big news. We have a cat. Woohoo.
Yeah, if we haven't
She's
mentioned it, we put it on our Instagram.
Yeah, she's adorable. She's a mother of 4. She was left in a sealed plastic bag hanging on the shelter's door handle with her 4 kittens. She's really fucked up, but she's adjusting well. Her kittens all survived. They're all doing great as well. And she's with us.
All right. Back on our bullshit. Part 2, Eclipse by Stephenie Meyer. We left you on a cliffhanger, which was Rosalie's backstory. Now, you all know, if you listen to our other episodes, that we are Rosalie stans in this house. We do not accept Rosalie slander here.
No. But the thing with Rosalie, I feel just as strongly that she is needs to be she's unfairly slandered as Leah. Leo Clearwater, but like I'm still a little bit afraid of her. And I don't know if that's because like I don't know if that's just because Stephenie Meyer did such a good job on me as a child, but just like I like feel like I would not be comfortable around Rosalie. Whereas Leah, like we'd be homegirls. Like I would totally be like 100% down to, like,
Eventually, yeah, when she warmed
hang
up
out
to
with
you.
Leah. Right. Whereas
Yeah.
like Rosalie, I think I'd be a little bit afraid of her. I don't know why. Like maybe it's just
I
because
think
she's
it's
like
just like Rosalie's like so high that I would just
right.
feel
It's like scary to be
intimidated.
around like beautiful people. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary to be around beautiful people. But anyway, listener, I feel like we've already kind of described why we love Rosalie, but now you kind of get the pièce de résistance of why Rosalie is the best Cullen, hands down.
Oh, for sure.
With her backstory. So Bella, to catch you up again, has been kidnapped by Alice and is having a little sleepover at the Cullens. Edward has gotten a bed, which she refuses to sleep on. I just want to say she just sleeps on the couch.
Good.
And I'm like, but
honestly, no, good.
but
I feel like
why would
it'll
you make
hurt.
yourself more uncomfortable?
It'll hurt Edward more than it hurts her. Like,
That's
realistically.
true. He does lift her up and put her on the bed as soon as he comes home the next
I thought
night.
he did that, but then I was like, wait, is he just like sitting next to her and that's why she can't
No. He puts her on the bed. Okay, so anyway, Bella's getting ready for bed in her prison, and Rosalie swings in, and she's like, okay, so I'm taking advantage of this opportunity when like overprotective boy Edward isn't in the vicinity to tell you my backstory. And basically I'm going to explain to you why I don't think you should become a vampire and why I've been such a bitch to you. She hasn't been a bitch objectively, but like why the book frames her as being such a bitch.
Right. Well, she has been kind of mean to Bella.
She has been kind of mean and she does admit that at one point she's like, I was mean to you because of the reasons which we are about to explain in the backstory,
right.
but also because I was like jealous that Edward had a crush on you and he never had a crush on me.
Right. Not because she likes Edward, because like just like she's like, what, am I not like pretty enough for you?
Yeah,
like,
she's just like offended.
And what I will say, like both in Edward's defense, and I can't decide if this like is a plus or a minus for Edward. So Edward obviously knows Rosalie's whole backstory, and he has never told Bella the details. Like I don't even know what he told her.
He doesn't tell them any of their backstories.
Yeah. And so like on the one hand, like that's good because Rosalie's basically like, yeah, Edward doesn't like to tell other people's stories because like he gets details that they might not necessarily want to share, which is like noble. And this is like a really fucked up story that you wouldn't just want to like, you would want to let the person share themselves. Yeah. Yes. But on the other hand, like, I don't know. I feel like knowing at least some elements of it would have like helped like humanize Rosalie to Bella. And so I feel like it's not really fair that Edward let Bella like, I don't know. I think overall it was a good move on Eddie's part.
No, overall good move, but I feel like it is, speaking of Leah, like very paralleled in that like the wolves all understand that Leah has a reason to be like very upset and like nasty, but like they quickly like
just don't care. Yeah.
They quickly stop caring about that and stop like giving her like slack for that.
The same thing with Rosalie.
So same thing. Justice, I want Rosalie and Leah to be best friends.
Oh, for sure. Oh, they would be such like, yeah, that's so unfortunate.
We're robbed of like a Rosalie, you know what? Rosalie could be like the person, the man behind the computer. So like Leah and her girlfriend are solving crimes, and then Rosalie's the one at the computer. / like the getaway driver.
Leah is also supposed to be really beautiful. But we're just not like hit over the head with it as much. That's not her like defining personality.
She's really beautiful, but also Stephenie Racism Alert describes her as like exotically beautiful. Like beautiful in an exotic way the first time we see her, and it's like, speaking of that, speaking of racism, make sure you donate to the Quileute Move to Higher Ground Fund, which will be linked in the show notes below, in order to ameliorate some of the harm that Stephenie Meyer did to the Quileute tribe and their culture by exploiting them for this book series. And now into Rosalie's backstory.
Rosalie comes in and she's like, can I come in? And Bella says, of course. My voice was an octave high, so it's more like, of course.
It's like a big thing, particularly in like this era of YA, to be like, oh, her voice like shot through an octave, and I'm like, do you know?
Right. It doesn't even sound weird. It's like totally normal. But like, yeah, if you think about it.
No, because it's so common in books for that to be described, and I'm like, surely one of these authors like has played a musical instrument and knows how ridiculous that is. Anyway, yeah, Rosalie comes in, and she is like, hello. Before we say this, I do want to give a trigger warning, probably for like at least the next 10 minutes. I'll try to remember to put a show note when we stop talking about this. Rosalie's backstory involves sexual assault. So if that is going to be something that is triggering for you, you should skip ahead to the timestamp that I put in the show notes.
So basically, Rosalie grew up in Rochester. She was like always really beautiful. That was like her defining characteristic. Her parents were like middle class, but they were kind of like social climbers. And even though it was the Depression, like she didn't really notice.
Which is weird, by the way, that because she's like, my dad was a banker. And I was like, a
Yeah,
banker in the Great Depression? Like that, it feels like.
it feels odd. Yeah, not every banker. I guess not every bank. Like I guess I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea.
It
You
just
can't
feels like
don't
that wouldn't be
question
the
it.
secure
Don't question
job.
it. Yeah, but I kind of relate to that because I feel like with the Great Recession, like I was not that aware of it either. I mean, the only thing
No.
like one of my best friend's dad lost his job. And so that was like obviously stressful for them. But like he found, it wasn't, that was like the only like adjacent direct like thing that I was aware of at the time.
I knew that a few kids in my elementary school had like meal vouchers for lunch.
Oh, really?
Like low income meal vouchers, but I don't
But
think I really like connected
connected
that
it. Yeah.
with the Great Recession, even though
Right.
it was
Because
like
I feel
going on at the
like it's
time.
odd because like that was just like right around the time that I was like gaining sentience, of like the greater like political climate. No, seriously, like that was like, because like I like President Obama, like 2008 was the first presidential election that I remember like really being aware of. Like I remember like some Dick Cheney, or whatever the fuck his name is, Bush Cheney, like bumper stickers, but like that was the first election that I was like really
Mhm.
like cognizant of. So I feel like that was, so it didn't seem, I guess like the recession like didn't make as much of an impact because it like it was like the first, it's like how we didn't realize how shit low rise jeans are, because that was like the first thing, the only thing you ever experienced, so you just think that's the only option. So recession is like the only option. Anyway, Rosalie, really beautiful. Her parents want her to marry well. And she's like, yeah, I was so shallow. Like all I wanted was like a nice life and a nice husband. I'm like, is it really shallow to want like a nice standard of living? Like doesn't everyone
Right, to
want
like
that?
want a nice house and like a family and like what
Right.
exactly is so bad? Stephenie, isn't that what you're like you think all women should want? I was like, I'm Stephenie,
Right.
I'm getting mixed messages here.
Right. And the one quote that skied me out though was she was like, I was pleased that men's eyes watched me everywhere I went from the year I turned 12. I was just like, girl, like I mean, obviously not your fault, but like I can't imagine like
Yeah, no, it was no. But I can also imagine a 12-year-old thinking, like, not realizing how fucked up it is for like grown men to think she's hot.
I
Just be like, oh,
guess.
I'm so mature,
I don't know.
you
I always
know?
thought it was so it always made me feel so yeah, I guess not everyone reacts the same. Yeah.
I mean, I felt icky getting catcalled at the age of 12, but that's me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. The only thing that Rosalie was ever jealous of was she had a best friend named Vera. And can I just say that this is like Rosalie so far is the only woman in this entire book series to have a female
A
best
female
friend.
friend.
Not even just friend, but like best friend. Like
True,
I wouldn't call
yeah.
Angela and Bella best friends. Like they're just like at most acquaintances,
No,
friendly. Like
Jacob is as Bella's best
right,
friend.
exactly. Yeah. So Vera is Rosalie's best friend, and she gets married young and has like a beautiful baby who's really cute. And that's the only thing Rosalie's ever been jealous of. But she's like, but Vera's husband was like was too poor. She's like, my husband, whatever. That's the only difference I wanted.
So she meets this dickwad Royce King the second, right? Second or third. I don't know. He's one of
Yeah.
those guys. He's one of those
Yeah.
types. And they get engaged and he's like super smarmy, but she's like, oh, he's rich and handsome and everybody thinks we're the power couple of Rochester, New York. And this is incredible. And they barely know each other, but they're getting engaged. And then one day Rosalie visits Vera and then she's like walking home late at night and she's like, oh, it's fine. Like, it's not that long a walk. Like, I'll just like walk home. And then she sees dickhead Royce and his friends hanging out on the street, apparently waiting for her. I've always been not clear about whether they're just hanging out there and they happen to run into her or whether like they've
Yeah.
been like waiting for her to come.
Oh, I never thought of that. I thought they were just like happened to be there, but maybe they're the
Because
same.
they're like they say something like, "Oh, you've been keeping us waiting" or something, like, you know what I
I thought
mean?
it was
Like it's
I heard it as more like the beginning of Blank Space where it's like, "Nice to meet you. Where you been?"
I know, I know. Well, that's why I'm saying it's not clear. Anyway, so they're super drunk. They're already dickhead misogynists, but now you've added alcohol in the mix. And basically, Royce is like, "Hey, isn't she hot?" And one of his friends is like, I can't see under all those clothes. And then, they assault her. And it's not like graphically described. We basically just cut ahead to her. She's like, I was like lying, bleeding, dying on the street. They left me for dead, basically. Carlisle has another villain moment in which he smells the blood, comes to see if he can help. So we're in the clear so far. But then he realizes, no, I can't help. But I do have a 17-year-old son in need of a girlfriend.
Oh my god.
So let me bring this super hot lady back
Oh my god.
and turn her into a vampire without her consent.
Yep.
Woohoo.
And I missed this until this reading. Rosalie, like I missed that specifically. Rosalie is like, I never liked Carlisle and his family, Esme and Edward. So like she specifically didn't even like them when she was a human. Like she didn't even like them then. And the other thing about this is that she's like, I didn't like the doctor and his wife and Edward, who was pretending to be Esme's brother at the time. So like the high school thing hasn't always been the cover. Like Edward used to be able to be like Esme's brother / adult. Like what?
Yes. Well, I mean, that makes sense. Like now that they have like a shit ton of kids, like high school is the easiest way to cover as opposed to, yeah, we're all like family.
Well, yeah, why couldn't, no, now that you just said that, why couldn't like, I feel like
It's a YA book, right? Rachel, the answer is it's a YA book.
no, the high school thing could stay, but even just like in the context of that, like why make them Esme's niece and nephew instead of like her siblings and then their parents like died and she got custody? You know what I mean?
Maybe because they don't look that much like her.
Yeah, but they're
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they don't really have the same coloring. So like niece and nephew is like, oh, well, they got that from the other side of the family. But like brother and sister, you're like, okay, well, why don't you guys look alike? Yeah. So Carlisle turns Rosalie into a vampire.
She overhears them like talking about her. Edward's like, Rosalie, what is her last name?
Rosalie Hale. It's Hale. She gets to
it's
keep her
actually
last
Hale.
name.
Oh, Rosalie Hale, really, Carlisle? And he's like, I didn't like the way he said my name, like as if there was something wrong with me. So like Edward is like the antagonist from the beginning. Like he's just like a dick. She wakes up and she's like, I felt a little bit better when I saw how beautiful I was, shallow as I was. And I'm like, who doesn't like being beautiful? Also, Bella has the same thought. Like,
if
why?
I went through a traumatic experience and I woke up to find myself like 10 times hotter than my already hot self, I'd be like, all right, this is a silver lining.
Right.
I can work with this. Like, obviously she's still traumatized. Obviously she's still upset. Doesn't make up for it. But like, you know, she's taken it. She's taken like her apples where she can get them.
And then she's like, it took some time for me to blame the beauty for what had happened to me, the curse of it, to wish I'd been ordinary. And I was like, it's not your fucking fault that they fucking SA'd you and basically murdered you. Like what? It sounds like that new moon excerpt, the outtake, the extra whatever, when Rosalie is like calling Edward and we just have a random scene of her like looking in the reflection and being like, oh, I wonder if I would have been a better person if I wasn't so hot.
No, it's so victim blamey. It's so, but there's such contradictory messages here because, right, so she's like, oh, the beauty, it's my fault because I was so hot and I leaned into being so hot. But then Stephenie also lets her hunt down and murder her rapists.
Yeah.
Like she picks them off one by one and then she's like, I saved Royce for last so he would know I was coming. And in the movie, we have the best scene in the entire franchise in which flashback Rosalie in full wedding regalia.
She wears it in the book too.
She kills. Does she wear it in the book? I didn't catch
she's like, I stole a wedding dress for the occasion.
Oh, okay. Yes. So she kills his bodyguards, bursts into his room and is like, honey, I'm home, fucker. And it's the most incredible. And this is like, I don't know how you don't read that and aren't like immediately a Rosalie stan. Yes. You're like, incredible. The drama. She knows how to be a vampire.
And she's a newborn, but she doesn't drink their blood. Like
she's like, I very specifically didn't drink any of their blood. And I don't think she's ever drunk a human's blood.
No.
Because she's like, my record is cleaner than Edward's. And she's like, the only reason it's not spotless is because I did kill those, like, 8 people or whatever.
Which just like makes Bella's whole thing, like Bella's going to have like super self-control. Like Rosalie had self-control to the point of being able to kill people and not eat them. Like, I feel like that's even more impressive than just not.
Yes. No, Rosalie is incredible. Justice for Rosalie. She's wonderful. Okay, you can tune back in now if you have fast forwarded from the sexual assault discussion. Basically, the end of Rosalie's story is that she's like, and then I found Emmett 10 years later, like he was fighting a grizzly bear in the woods. And I found him and it's a little creepy here.
It's a little creepy.
She's like, I saw him and his dark curls and like face that I knew was meant for laughing despite his grimace of pain reminded me so much of Vera's little boy. And I was like, ooh. It's a little weird that you fell in love with him because he looks like a baby.
I mean, I know this is kind of a stretch because like, I do think it's like vampire love at first sight, imprinting, whatever. But she doesn't say like I fell in love with him because he looked like a baby. She says like I felt compelled to save him because he looked like the baby. I just like couldn't let someone like that innocent or whatever like get killed by a grizzly bear, basically.
Yeah. Anyway, she like carries him back to Carlisle and gets Carlisle to change him, and now they're like dumb jock and hot blonde forever. And it's incredible. And so the reason Rosalie is like, listen, the reason that I don't want you to become a vampire is A, because like you won't be able to have kids. And I'm really sad that I can't have kids and like grow old with Emmett. Also, none of us had a choice, especially not me. And you have a choice and you should like think about like what you're actually giving up. And she's like very reasonable and very chill. I feel like it still kind of paints Rosalie as the baddie, but she's like, maybe not. Maybe this is kind of the point at which Stephenie Meyer is like, oh no, Rosalie like has some depth. She's not shallow as a puddle.
Oh, God. Well, and Rosalie, like Esme has made do with us as substitutes, and like Alice doesn't remember. And I'm like, okay, why with just the women? But also, why is it never like it's just so odd that like it never occurs to Rosalie to also like adopt, quote unquote. Not even quote unquote, just like actually. I mean, I guess they wouldn't want to like turn like a child, you know, like raise a child and turn it into a vampire, but like why not do a similar thing? Like I don't know.
Well, I think because she wants a kid. Like she doesn't want like a full person that like she like pretends to be the mom of. Like she wants a baby. And I think she also wants like it's the kids, but it's also the like growing old and watching your grandchildren be born and like the whole human experience. Yes, anyway. Bella learns nothing from this. Absolutely nothing. She's like, thank you for the story. I will file that away for later. And by file that away for later, she's going to shred it in the recesses of her mind. Like absolutely no consideration is given to this story.
No. And I mean, the thing is like, it's not exactly the same because like I do actually think like Bella, you know, it's like very valid to be like think through your options. But it's kind of giving like how Stephenie thought that Breaking Dawn was basically like a pro-life story when like really it's the exact opposite. It's like fucking pro-choice. It's kind of like, yeah, Rosalie, you would have chosen differently, but the point is that Bella has a choice. Like that's the whole like that's what you wanted was a choice. You wouldn't have wanted someone to make your choice for you, and that's like what you're trying to so I don't know.
Stephenie,
she's so close.
She's so close. She's just not, she didn't get there.
But on the other hand, like it's very valid for Rosalie to be like, you're a literal child. Like you're 18, but like your brain is a literal child and you should think this through.
I mean, Rosalie is like, she's like, listen, like you don't know what you want even 5 years from now, let alone like for the rest of eternity. Like you really need to think this through. Mm-hmm. Also, Edward is a little bitch. Like, are you sure he's worth it?
Yeah. Oh my God, he's such a and you know what, I don't think like I've seen like so many things being like, oh, Rosalie and Edward are like, I don't, maybe we even said this in New Moon, I can't remember, like, Rosalie and Edward are the most similar, but I don't even think so because Rosalie is just like so much more reasonable. Like she would never overreact. She's not like over dramatic. She's not like, she's controlling sort of, but like not nowhere near the extent of Edward. She's just so much more chill and like not a psycho and like not a melodramatic little bitch. Like she's just, I don't know.
Yeah, anyway. So the next day, Jacob comes to spring Bella from school. He kidnaps her and they drive off. Woo!
No, wait, why are we rushing through this? No. This is iconic.
Oh,
so they go to school. Alice is attempting to lay on the guilt trip on Bella. She's like, you're supposed to be having fun. He's going to take my Porsche back. And like Bella's like actually feels guilty. She's like, I can't believe I actually felt guilty. Like I'm like, I can't believe it either, Bella. And then she hears like a murmuring, like, you know, commotion in the crowd. And like, I just picture like, it's like the Red Sea parting, but like children. And it's just Jacob on his like flaming motorcycle once again, just like a fucking like Roman god, just like, and he's like, run, Bella. And Bella's like, I had a split second. She's like, how would Alice restrain me in public? And like, luckily she doesn't. So Alice like Bella makes it onto the motorcycle and they run away basically. Yeah. And Bella's talking to Mike at the time. And she's like to Mike, she's like, I got really sick and went home. Okay. And Mike's like, fine. So like Mike has come around. Mike is chill now. Like he's come so far around to Team Jacob that he's like willing to lie for Bella.
So yeah, they go to hang out on the push. I would like to know, I did make a note that Jacob exclusively uses she, her to refer to like objects of people's imprinting, which makes me like really convinces me that Stephenie accidentally made Leah like a canon bisexual. Like if it's canon that like you can only imprint on a girl, like just saying like Leah's gonna imprint on a girl. Joke's on you, Stephenie. Your heteronormative swung back around, made it gay.
I thought another. So I said like the real thing that would have been best for like Claire and like any child is to just like not talk to them for like 25 years basically.
Yeah.
But also like, and I don't know how, again, like, it's not the werewolf's fault. Like, this is like they're being oppressed by this just as much. But also, like, why don't you just not look at any children ever? Like, why don't you just like not look at any children? Right? Like, I don't know. Like, why even take the risk? Why are you're playing fast and loose out here, and for what? For what? I don't
Oh
know.
no. Oh yeah. Yeah. So they're having a discussion, and basically Bella, like, it comes around to Bella being like, yeah, I'm like gonna get turned into a vampire. Like, I've made my choice. Like, it's happening, and it's gonna happen like after graduation. It's gonna happen in a few weeks. And Jacob, they are drinking soda at the time, and Jacob squeezes his soda can so tightly that the soda like explodes all over them. And this just like really reminded me of the time that I came out of my room last week, and like you and Stefan were cleaning up cherry Coke from all over the kitchen because a cherry Coke can had like leapt from the freezer and exploded.
Yeah, no, Stefan was trying to put them like from the box into the fridge. It was Diet Cherry Coke, so it was very easy to clean up. But yeah, it was insane. I don't know how it was like a perfect
Just
radius.
come out and they're like
it was
guiltily like hello.
It was. I don't know how it got. It was a perfect spray. It was like on the curtains. It was on the wall. It was on the cat's food. It was on the chair. I found some on a chair like 3 days later. But it came off easy. It was on the carpet. Like,
oh my gosh. Yeah, anyway, I was like really like vividly remember that. Anyway, Jacob is obviously very pissed, hence the soda squeezing. And he basically tells Bella like, you'd be better off dead. Which is a dick thing to say, which is just the worst thing to say.
No, he not only says, he's like, you'd be better off dead. I wish you were. Like, I wish you were. Like, what the fuck?
Yes. Dickhead Jacob is rearing his ugly head again. So Bella, for the first time in her life, does not put up with the Jacob's bullshit and leaves, and she goes back to the house, and now Eddie Boy is back.
Can I just say, so before she leaves, like, they're just like chatting, and Jacob's like, don't you remember like when we were so happy? Like, it was just like such a better time, like when Edward was gone. And Bella was like, I couldn't agree with him. This was my happy era now. And like, I feel like Bella thinks she's in like her lover era or something, but like she's really in 1989. Like, she's really, that's what it is with Edward. Like, she's not happy. I don't know. Maybe it's too convoluted. Anyway, she's back home. Squidward's back.
Okay. Handsome Squidward has arrived. And we get the scene heard around the world by Twilight fans, because this book series is so dry and so mild that Twilight fans like went rabid for this before, you know, the fade to black sex scenes of Breaking Dawn, which is a whole other issue that we'll get to when we talk about Breaking Dawn. But in this scene, Bella wakes up on the bed. Horny Bella is like rears her head. Now it's time. And her and Edward start making out. And Edward grabs her calf and like loops it around his hip. And like it's quite frankly, like, again, this is a couple who like they don't French kiss. Like, so this is like, holy shit, like he's putting their pelt, like, Stephenie, oh my god, we've got pelvis touching. Like,
this did not make any impact on me, like at the time or now. But
this wasn't the scene that I reread in Eclipse. I think I reread the proposal scene later most. Anyway, horny Bella is like, let's have sex. And Edward obviously cock blocks because he's a sad virgin who must conform to sexual shaming.
And then Edward also has the nerve to be like, so did you make any plans to go back to La Push? And this is like as Bella's like visibly upset about like something that went down in La Push. So he knows like a fight went down. So he's like so fucking manipulative. But Bella's like, oh, he must have like misunderstood. And I'm like, no, the only reason he's saying that is because like he knows you don't want to go back, but he's like pretending to be reasonable or generous or whatever. But he also kind of does change his tune. He's like, I guess you're not in danger. Like, you should go if you want to.
Yeah. That's not what I got, because maybe I was just influenced by Stephenie Meyer's FAQ about Eclipse, about how like she wrote Edward as in like I said, like he's overcorrecting. So he's going from like trying to like protect Bella to the extreme and like stopping her from seeing Jacob to like being very laissez-faire about Jacob because like he doesn't want to like push Bella away by like, you know, making her escape from school to go to La Push and like sneak out constantly. So like I do think Edward is actually being like I think he's written to be genuine here. Like, you can argue whether you actually think he is, but I think the intention behind this scene is Edward is like legitimately trying to be cool about Jacob. And I even wrote a note like Edward is being weirdly cool about Jacob.
Yeah. Well, and the irony about the overcorrection is that like it's not really an overcorrection. Like he's just acting like a normal person. Like what? You have no right to tell Bella what she can and can't do or who she can and can't see. Like what? I don't know what middle ground she thinks he should be taking.
Well, the middle ground would be Edward being like, yes, Bella, like I'm really jealous of Jacob. Like I'm admitting this to you. Please like choose me, as opposed to like kind of like pushing her closer into Jacob's arm. I'm quoting Stephenie Meyer's website. I'm not saying this makes sense, but like Edward, like by being so like cool about Jacob, he like kind of pushes her closer to Jacob and like makes her more conflicted. It's silly.
There shouldn't be.
I'm just saying that's the view. I'm saying that's the authorial view.
The only thing, if he like admitted like, yeah, it makes me a little bit jealous, but like I want you to do like, but still, I don't know. I feel like he's just being
the overcorrection because
normal.
he's pretending to be totally cool.
Well, he should be totally cool,
right? But listen, it would not be unhealthy. Like we're talking about a normal teenage couple. Like you're not like. Like your teenage boy and your girlfriend has a guy best friend and like you know that he has a crush on her. Like he's made it like very clear that like he likes her and like she's made it very clear that she doesn't like it. But you know, it's totally normal for you to still be like insecure. It's not totally normal for you to be like you can't hang out with him, like stop being his friend. But it's like healthy to be like, hey, like I just want to let you know, like, you know, I'm not telling you not to be friends with him, but like it does make me a little bit uncomfortable.
Speaking of things that made Edward uncomfortable, also like Bella at some point has like another thing we haven't found out until now is that like the Denali coven, who are like the Cullen's friends, they are like three very hot sisters basically, and one of them, Tanya, was like into Edward when the Cullens lived up there for a bit. And Edward's like, Bella's like, tell me like what happened. Like I want the deets because like Bella's jealous too. And Edward's like, Tanya expressed a little interest. I let her know in a very courteous, gentlemanly fashion that I did not return that interest. And I was like, all right, a courteous, gentlemanly, aka get thou back from me, harlot. Like, like he definitely was just like
back witch
crosses. Like
100%. The power of Christ compels you. Back, demon.
Oh my god.
Definitely. Yeah, so basically Edward is like, listen, you can go hang out with Jacob. Like I'm gonna trust your judgment, and like also I don't want you constantly like having to escape. Like that's I've realized that is not the best way to go about this situation. Yeah. So that's resolved. And Bella doesn't get to have sex.
And Bella goes home and Jacob has been like trying to desperately call Bella through Charlie to apologize. And Charlie's basically like, he's like, Bella's like, I don't like mad at Jacob, and Charlie's like, that's not very attractive behavior, Bella. Forgiveness is divine. And,
fuck off, Charlie.
So that was a kind of weird phrasing the first time I heard it. But then like,
is it Mormon?
A little, as I don't know. That's what I was gonna say. A little bit later, Bella's like, I decided to be divine and like go forgive Jacob. You know, I was like, is this a Mormon phrase or something? Like forgiveness is divine. Like, is this something that like Stephenie thinks is like a normal?
Oh no, this is to err is human, to forgive divine. It's apparently from Pope Alexander. Yeah, this is a saying from an essay on criticism by Alexander Pope. Oh, wait, Alexander Pope, not Pope Alexander. Who the fuck is Alexander
Interesting.
Pope? He was a 17th/18th century poet, translator, and satirist. Oh, so that could also be satire.
Yeah.
He's at the title, an essay on criticism, makes me think that that phrase is actually probably satire. A twist.
All right. Anyway.
All right. Backing out of etymology corner. Now we're back to Eclipse.
Yeah.
Bella goes up to her room and she's like, it's so weirdly tidy in here, and my pillow is missing, and my red blouse is missing, and a bunch of my other clothes are missing, enough that my laundry basket was full to bursting, and now it's not even half full. I was like, Jesus Christ, like half her wardrobe is gone. Like I feel like this whole time I thought it was just like a few shirts, but like no, it's like literally half her closet.
Yeah.
So she's like, where'd all my stuff go? Like, oh, Alice must have cleaned up. And then Edward shows up and she opens the door and Edward is like, stay here. And he runs upstairs and he's like, someone has been in your room. A vampire has been in your room. I don't recognize the scent. Oh my gosh. And like, they're super tense. They're like, oh my God, like someone has been in my room. Like even when Charlie was in the house, oh my God. And Charlie thinks that Edward and Bella are having a fight. And he's happy about it. He's like, so Bella's we get multiple descriptions in this scene in which Charlie's like grinning like a fucking kid on 4th of July.
Yeah.
Like, because he thinks his daughter is. I'm like, listen, you cannot like Edward, but like, again, like, this is just, that would distress Bella. Like, why are you glad that your daughter's in distress?
Well, he's just like wants them to break up. Like, I don't know. He's just like over it.
I know, but Charlie is like, seems to be like constantly happy about things that upset Bella. Him and Jacob have that in common. Yeah, anyway, so they're like, oh no, a vampire has stolen Bella's scent. They're worried about that. And then Jacob calls once again. And Bella's like, fine, I'll pick up the phone. I'll let Jacob off the hook, quote unquote. And Jacob like calls and he's like apologizing. And he says, I can't believe I was such a jerk. And I was like, me in my head, I can. Like 100, very in character for you, Jacob, to just say, I wish you were dead to your friend. You sack of shit. But Bella once again forgives Jacob, which is a growing theme. And it's something that Jacob, by the way, like fully recognizes and uses to his advantage. Like near the end, at one point, he's like, yeah, I do things that upset you because I know you'll forgive me for them. So like Jacob has no consideration, like actively has no consideration for Bella's feelings because he knows she's like,
as they benefit him. Like he uses it. He considers them and how he can manipulate them.
Right. Like he's like, I do not give a shit. Like at least Edward like is like trying to make Bella happy, even if he's going about it in the totally wrong way. Like Jacob is like actively like, no, I literally don't give a shit about Bella's happiness.
And Bella like recognizes it. Like it's the same thing as like, I know Jacob will tell me because he doesn't care if I get scared.
Yeah. But it's like, it's presented as a positive, but it's not. Like,
no.
It's equally as fucked up. Yeah. So she calls and Edward is like, actually, it may be useful to have the werewolves watching out for a potential vampire in the area. So, like, let me talk to Jacob. And he's like, yeah, Jacob, like, you guys should keep an eye out. So now, like, the wolves and the vampires are doing, like, watch duty on Bella's house once again. And, Jacob comes over to get some of the scent. He comes over to get the scent. And right before he comes over, Edward purposely breathes on Bella's hair. And then before he, like, leaves, so that when Jacob comes and hugs her, he'll smell it. And I was like, honestly, like, petty move of the century. That's incredible.
Right.
Well played, Edward.
Yeah. Can I just say that I wrote this down earlier for Edward, and Jacob does it too. Bella's, like, washing dishes, and they both separately like come over to help her dry, which like just that's notable in that Charlie never does it. Like Bella's constantly just like the only one washing dishes. So at least like both Edward and Jacob like help, even though they weren't the ones eating, unlike Charlie.
Right.
Just the number of times even in this book like Bella like serves Charlie leftovers without even eating herself. So Jacob, I forget what upsets him. He like accidentally squeezes like a knife too hard while drying it, like slices his hand open.
Because they're talking about her vampire transformation. He's trying to be cool about it.
And we were saying like, oh, why doesn't Bella's like smelling of blood come back? And like she does. Like it's like the room shimmered a little around me, like my head whirled. So it does come back.
Only in this scene, not later on when there's significantly more blood.
No. And then Jacob heals right away, and Bella's like shocked. And I was like, wait, there's no fucking way we didn't find this out until now. And yeah, Bella just somehow managed to forget it. She also managed to forget like the clothing thing, how like their clothes don't, because she's like, Jacob, why are you always shirtless? And he's like, well, it's annoying to carry around jeans in my mouth. Like I'm trying to like minimize here.
To be fair to Bella about the scar thing, she learned about it when like Jacob and Paul had that fight in New Moon, and like she sees Paul's scar, but like after it's like she doesn't see him get hurt. She just sees like, oh, he has like a really old looking scar. That's weird. Whereas now she sees Jacob like physically like pouring blood into the sink and like sees it heal like in the process. So I do get, she is like, it's a different experience.
I don't know.
To be fair to Bella, like to sort of conceptualize that sort of speedy healing is difficult if you don't actually see it.
It's not at all though. It's like such a common trope. Like, come on, does Bella not read? Anyway.
She only reads the classics. Mr. Darcy does not have sped up healing, so Bella knows not about it.
Here's the thing else. He never gets injured, so it's not confirmed or denied. So also, so after Jacob's bleeding, Bella cleans with the blood, and she's like very thorough about it. She's friends with vampires, and Jacob's like, "Do you have OCD?" Which like this is the second like Bella also was like, "Do I have?" I was like, "That is not what OCD is."
No.
Anyway. And then he tries to like hug her, and he's like, "Oh, your hair smells." And then we hear like Edward. He's like, "I realized what Edward was chuckling about earlier."
Like, what a dick. And is this when he's like, I saw a story on the news about controlling abusive teenage relationships, right? Is this when he says that? Or is it the next time they hang out?
No, because Jacob's like, "Oh, we're having a bonfire next week, like, or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
You should come
Tomorrow.
Like you can see Quill and Embry again. Like Quill's pretty mad that you found out before he did, as he should be. And Bella's like, "I'll ask if I can come to the bonfire." And Jacob's like, "Yeah, I saw this thing in the news last week about controlling abusive teenage relationships." And I was just like, "Stephenie, you think you're making a funny, but you just keep hitting the nail on the head over and over and over again without
Stephenie,
realizing
this is a controlling abusive teenage
that's exactly what this is." Oh my God.
Bella's like, shut up. And I'm like, no, he's right. Like, me stands up in the back row. He's right.
What is that? Is that that's like a Reddit thing?
It's like a meme. It's like someone goes up to the microphone and like says something like, quote unquote controversial. Like, I don't know, like, Taylor Swift is gay. And then like the crowd boos. But then out in the back row, someone shouts, he's right. The spotlight shines on the back row. It's Taylor Swift. Yeah. Like that.
Oh my God. So Edward like is his new like, cosplaying as a normal person mood. He decides that Bella can go.
Wait. I'm sorry. Before they go to La Push, there is a conversation, like the murders in Seattle come back up again. And this is when they figure out that there's a bunch of newborns in Seattle. So like newborn vampires, I'm pretty sure. Cause they're like, oh, it's like such erratic killings. Like we know it's a vampire, but it's like so many of them that there's no way it's just like one. So like, oh, it's probably newborn vampires. And newborn vampires are like super out of control and super bloodthirsty, and like they're just like a slave to their instincts. Strong. So it makes sense. And like they like clearly don't have anyone training them. So like that's what.
And Bella's like, I forget how this context comes up, but like she's like, "Oh, this whole like deception thing is a pain. Like I hate lying to Charlie or whatever." And Edward's like, "Don't worry, it gets easier. After a few decades, everyone you know is dead." And so
Eddie Boy gets so much more like quippy and sarcastic like as this book goes on, and like I kind of love it. Like it's the joking Edward. I mean, he's not relaxed. He's never relaxed because he has a constant stick up his ass. But like the joking Edward, I'm like, all right, I see it a little bit.
Yep. And also Edward's like, "Fine, you can ride your motorcycle. Like Daddy will give you permission to ride it as long as you wear a helmet." They weren't wearing helmets before this point.
No, like, what? And Bella's like, "I'll look stupid." And I'm like, you know what'll look even more stupid? You flattened on the side of the road like a pancake.
Oh my God.
Like, you already gave yourself a traumatic like head injury the first time you rode one.
So 2 of my dissertation chapters were about organ donation. One of them like spillover effects of life-saving policies. And one of like the biggest like areas of like studying this is in, I forget what, in like the 2000s, a bunch of states repealed their motorcycle helmet laws. So it was no longer required to wear a helmet while riding a motorcycle. Yeah. And it's a huge effect on organ donation. Like you can study like the spillover effects on like the organ donation supply, specifically because people aren't wearing helmets anymore. And what happens when you don't wear a helmet on a motorcycle, you become a great candidate to be an organ donor.
Yep. Anyway, wear helmets, kids. Edward also gets her a fancy like motorcycle jacket, which I guess is supposed to like prevent her from like getting like road burn or anything if she falls off. So basically he just like swathes her in protective gear, and then she puts on the clothes and she's like, "I look ridiculous." And he's like, "Actually, Bella, you look kind of sexy."
Does he say that?
Yes, he says sexy, and he chokes it out. Like the way Ileana like delivers this, and he feels it like burning the sin up his throat. But like he's like, "You look sexy."
He had to give himself like 20 lashes tonight.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my
Absolutely.
God. And so like next up, I don't know how Edward like acquired Bella's motorcycle, but parked next to hers is this like giant ass, like, I don't even know how to describe, like giant ass silver motorcycle adjacent thing. And he's like, oh, well, like I got that. I figured like if you didn't make up with Jacob and like you still wanted to ride, like we could do it together. Bella's just like, oh, this is awkward. Like I look like I'm riding a tricycle like next to this. And he's like, sorry, I get it. It's something you do with Jacob. I should have realized.
It's fine. I don't. He does back off.
It's so cool. Like, why is this like not a bigger thing? It's great.
Why doesn't especially when she becomes a vampire, like why doesn't Bella get like a sick motorcycle and like
she can
just
ride her?
zooms around?
Yeah, that's so cool that Bella rides a motorcycle. I feel like that should have been a bigger part of her character, like in the movies too, not just with Jacob, but like on her own. Because like I didn't even, again, speaking of like things that I completely forgot about Eclipse, like the fact that Bella even uses it as like a solo mode of transportation at all. Like,
yeah, why don't we get like a sick like chase scene?
Or just like Bella just riding around for like, I don't know.
Well, she is at one point. I'm pretty sure when she's going home from Jacob, she's like, or at some point she's like, yeah, motorcycles are like not great for Washington State because it's really rainy.
It's like taking a 100-mile-per-hour bath.
Yeah.
So now it's time for the bonfire, and Edward and Jacob basically like exchange Bella at the treaty line like parents who like don't have a good custody agreement and have to like exchange their kids in the McDonald's parking lot. Like that's the imagery here.
That's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. So yeah, so they all go, there's like a tribal meeting, which is basically just seems like a fun, cozy like campfire where like all of the like werewolves plus the tribal elders are like hanging out there. And Jared and Kim are there. And if you don't remember from last episode, we mentioned Jared and Kid. Jared is like one of the werewolves who is imprinted, and Kim is his object of imprintation. And Bella's like looking at them, and she's like, she describes Jared as, quote, like a blind man seeing a son for the first time, but also she describes him as like a mother looking into the face of her newborn baby. And I am like, they're not the same thing. One of those is an okay description of romantic love, Stephenie, and the other one is not.
And she also like, so Bella's like, oh, Kim's like pretty ugly. Like her, quote, her nose and mouth were both far too, wait, does it say wide or thin? I wrote thin, but I feel like she says wide.
I think it's like flat and wide
for traditional beauty. Her face is mostly cheekbones. And I was like, all right, so basically she doesn't fit like Eurocentric beauty standards. Like, yeah. But then she's like, but after seeing Jared look at her, she looks beautiful. So yeah. No.
So after all the werewolves eat like 20 hot dogs each, this is a relatively long scene in which we learn that they've each eaten like 20 hot dogs
and like a family-sized bag of chips and like 5 sodas each.
Billy Black and Old Quill tell the like legends of the tribes, and the reason like they all like, besides Bella obviously like already know the legends, but like this is the first time some of them are hearing them, like knowing that they're true or whatever. So we hear, I mean, I don't think we need to say like all of that.
No, basically like the wolves started by spirit warriors.
Yeah, whatever. Like the Quilliads used to be just spirit warriors, and then like because of a series of power hungry convoluted events, like they eventually became shape-shifting werewolves. And then the vampires finally showed up, and they were bad and they got in a fight. And then the like OG werewolf died, and then his son is like, I'm going to avenge my father. Boom, I've turned into a werewolf.
So basically all the wolves are descended from like this one dude. Like they're all like related back to them. So only like his sons, as far as we know. So all of them got killed eating the vamp. So only this one baby was left, and he like turned into a werewolf.
He was the son. Okay, so the OG werewolf guy had 3 wives, not at the same time. They like each like died, and the third wife was the object of his imprinting. So like he was going to die with her. Mm-hmm. So his oldest son with her dies fighting the vampire. The third wife sees that her husband's about to die. Her child has just died. She's like, fuck. So she stabs herself in the heart. I don't know why. We later on in the book, we get a full example of why stabbing yourself in the heart is not necessary for this kind of distraction. But she stabs herself in the heart to distract the vampire long enough that the other werewolves can take her down. So the other werewolves take her down, but then the third wife dies, and then the OG werewolf is like naturally sad for the rest of his days. Yeah. But Bella hears this story, and she's like, oh, wow. That was inspiring. Like, I aim to be like this woman who stabbed herself in front of like a supernatural creature fight. And I just feel like Jacob like really should have known better than to allow Bella to hear a story about self-sacrifice. Like,
I know. And Edward's gonna fully roast him for that. Can I just say that I only just realized okay, so the werewolf guys, if you don't stop aging, you outlive your wives. But not only that, presumably he had children with each of those wives, and some of those children were girls. So he not only outlived his wives, he outlived half his children. What the fuck? I don't know. I feel like I would be so mad if I was a girl in this situation.
Yeah, I don't know why girls can't be werewolves. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Especially because many, I mean, I don't know specifically about Quilio culture, but many indigenous cultures, the whole super patriarchy that's European way of life is not that, it wasn't a one-to-one correlation. A lot of indigenous, North American indigenous communities were either matriarchies or had very women had very important roles.
Yeah, well, it's because it's written by Stephenie Meyer, who is
I mean, Stephenie Meyer is very Eurocentric. But again, I don't know Quilio culture, so I could be talking out of my ass. I'm just saying, in general.
Yeah, a lot of them are matriarchal. We're matriarchal.
Or if they were matriarchal, women had really important spiritual roles, particularly spiritual roles.
Mm-hmm. And then she falls asleep. Edward drops her back off with Eddie Boy, and he's Jacob drops her back off with Eddie Boy, and he's oh, if I play nice, I'll get more time with you. And Edward so throughout this Wuthering Heights, we're not allowed to forget it because it's worked in throughout random times.
Yeah, more so than any of the other books.
Well, because frankly, the parallel would not be anywhere near as clear without, you need to be hit over the head with it, because it's just not obvious at all. Edward's oh, I kind of sympathize with Heathcliff, or Edward's reading the book or something that Bella
Bella's
it.
asleep and they're cuddling and he's been reading the book and she wakes up after a nightmare from the third wife.
Mm-hmm. And they read this quote that's even though I hate him, I would never hurt him because she loves him, but the second she doesn't like him anymore, I'm gonna drink his blood or something.
That's a literal quote from the book. And literally drink his blood.
Yeah. And so once again, Bella's let's fuck, DTF, and everyone's no, you harlot, get back from me.
And then Bella's also you should turn me into a vampire now. Now that there are newborns in Seattle, I don't want to be a liability. This is also on the third wife theme. She's I don't want to be weak. And Edward is no, you aren't going to be turned into a vampire just because you have this sword hanging over your head. You need to make an informed decision. You can't do this just because you're scared, which is a fair position for him to take. He's obviously not doing it for the right reasons, but objectively fair argument.
So, and Edward's also in order for me to change you, he's holding steady to his you have to marry me first if you want me to change you line. And Bella's that's so embarrassing, I'm only 18, no one gets married at 18 in today. And Edward's yeah, but that's just this current culture, we're gonna be living forever, and many different cultures change, why would you let one culture dictate? But the only reason he wants to get married now is because of when he grew up, so he's doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, so now they're all hanging out with the Cullens, and because the newborns have been introduced, we have to get a backstory that is related to the newborns. And Stephenie Meyer makes a choice here, a choice that was so unnecessary. There was no reason for this to happen, but she makes it anyway. We get Jasper's backstory, because Jasper, before he joined the Cullens, was part of this whole newborn territory war in the southern United States and Mexico in the 19th century or whatever. And Jasper, we find out, was a goddamn Confederate soldier. Explicit, and not even drafted. He lied about his age because he was so excited to be a Confederate soldier. Stephenie! No!
For
just
what?
A big old racism.
For what? And it's not just it's a central part. Even right in the illustrated guide, that's his picture is a little Confederate uniform, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's just so unnecessary. If you want it, you could have made him a soldier. You could have just made him a guy, a soldier, not in particular war. He doesn't have to be in the war. He could just be on patrol. He's a sheriff in Texas.
He could have been a Union soldier.
He could have been a Union soldier.
And even if you wanted to make him Southern, make him Tennessee had two armies, for example, a Union one, a Confederacy one. He could have been from Tennessee and been in the Union Army. He can still be Southern. He can still. Like, what?
It's
Anyway.
so unnecessary. Like, why are you making him?
Anyway, we find out that so he was like really into being in the army. Everyone liked him as a human. Like he was good at like influencing people and like moving up through the ranks. He became like the youngest.
He was very charismatic.
Yeah.
As the Princess
He
and the Frog
became
logos.
like the youngest, like whatever, like captain or something. I don't know. That's a Navy. I don't know, something. Which doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really fit with his gift in the same way that like I don't know. Like Alice could actually see the future as a human. So like that makes sense. But like I feel like having people like you versus being able to manipulate their emotions. I don't know. It's just not. And it also doesn't, because people don't like Jasper as a vampire. Like he's not like a likable.
Well, no, but maybe it was like he's putting it as people always liked me, but maybe it was more like, oh, people always felt like really calm and happy around me, and so like I was more likely to be in their good favor.
Yeah. So one day he's like walking back from somewhere by himself for some reason, and he runs into.
He was evacuating because the Union.
But why he's by? I don't know why you would ever be by yourself, but like right, exactly. Yeah, running from the Union.
Oh,
and
no.
he runs into these 3 women who are like by themselves, and his instinct is to be like, oh no, these poor women, I must help them.
No, I'm sorry. But he calls them not women. Females. He calls them females.
Yeah.
He calls them females. So you already, like, on top of him being a racist Confederate, already red flag number 1. Red flag number 2 is that he's calling these ladies females before knowing that they're vampires.
That's the thing about the females thing, is that like there's nothing inherent about it that's so bad. Like, yeah, you're referring people as adjectives. Like, that's not great. It's just the huge correlation with being like, yeah, a fucking Confederate soldier or a misogynist or just like stupid and trying to sound
a general
smart.
Shitty person.
Right. It's not. Yeah. It's a marker more than like an inherent like, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. It's like if you use the word females, you're not automatically a bad person, but there's a pretty good chance that you're a bad person.
Right. It's a tip off. So he goes up to them. He's like, can I help you? And he's like, their skin was so white. I marveled at it. Like, of course you fucking did, Jasper.
Even the ones particularly, and this is another thing. I don't know whether we talked about this with Laurent, but how Stephenie canonically is like, there are no vampires of color, like explicitly. Like, even if you were, and like we see it here, Maria is supposed to be like
indigenous
Mexican, and he specifically is like, oh, she has those features, but like her skin was like porcelain. So like Stephenie very consciously made the decision to not have any vampires of color. And I just feel like it's so
shit. It's the Mormonism. That's the thing. That's the thing in Mormonism, is that like dark skin is a curse and everyone will be white in heaven.
Yes. Like Black people weren't allowed to like go to heaven until like the 1980s or whatever. It's something that I'm glad the movies were like, we're not going to do that. Yeah. That's stupid. Yeah, so Jasper gets turned into a vampire, and he gets recruited into the Newborn Territory War. So basically, like, the origin of that is that some guy really wanted some city and like made a bunch of newborns who are like super strong and like use them to like take out a bunch of like other vampire covens. And then the Volturi came in and like killed everyone, and were like, cut that shit out because like people are gonna see us. And then they restarted doing it, but like in a more chill, secret, controlled way. So Jasper's like in this second stage, and he's like he and Maria are like helping people, like turning people into newborns and like training them and like using them. And like he's super good at it because he can like control their emotions. So like he can like, they're like super good fighters together because of that.
So the territory wars are described as like, you know, if you're the only vampire, like for example, in Mexico City, you could feed 3 times a night and no one would ever notice. But that's still that's a lot of people. It's like 1,000 people a year. I guess I just looked at the population of Mexico City. It's 9.2 million, which is actually a lot.
I mean, what was it in the 19th century though?
Well, sure. So it's like even more noticeable.
I'm also just thinking, okay, I'm thinking of the time when Bella first goes hunting in Breaking Dawn, she drinks like the mountain lion, and then she drinks a deer, right? And she's like, oh, I felt uncomfortably full and like sloshy, and it was like not fun. So I'm also sitting here like, why would you want to drink 3 people a night? Like that just sounds like,
right,
it's gonna be uncomfy. Like, why?
Yeah. Okay. The population in 1900 was 345,000. So like,
yeah, no, that's like 3.45% of the population every year. That's a significant amount.
I also just don't understand why they'd want to be fighting over the southern cities instead of the northern, because they can go out during the day. I don't know, whatever. Yeah, but Jasper's basically part of this deal, this bitch named Maria. And like they basically just like make armies, and then like once they're no longer useful, they kill them. But Jasper makes friends with this dude Peter. And Peter's like, he's talented, so they keep him around. Yeah. And one day they're like killing everyone, and Jasper's like, I could tell Peter was uncomfortable. And then Charlotte comes in, and Peter's like, run, and he runs after her. And like, I could have stopped them, but I didn't want to. And Maria was like mad at me for that.
Basically, like Jasper grows a conscience, like partially because like he can feel everyone's emotions, and he's like, this kind of sucks. Like, this is super overwhelming. And I'm like, why didn't you leave sooner?
How? Yeah. Like, what? How?
I guess because he paints it as like he just didn't know that there was like another way to live. And I'm like, use that big vampire brain, Jasper.
Right.
Like you can't think that there's like there's just no that everybody is constantly at war. Like, I just don't understand. You can't even imagine there are people who just like only eat people occasionally and like otherwise just keep to themselves, like whatever. So Peter comes back and he's like, hey Jasper, there's a whole new world out there of not war. And Jasper's like, that's great. And then he leaves. And then he's still sad eating people because he's like, I can feel how sad and scared they are when I eat them. And that really puts a sour taste in your mouth, really ruins the meal. So one day he is brooding in Philadelphia and he walks into a diner, and I'm picturing specifically that diner. You know that like famous like 20th century art piece of like that diner at night? You know what I'm talking about? That's the diner that I picture.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
it's and like so long. He walks it's like in.
Or train car.
It's like from you're seeing the diner from the outside. Yeah. Okay. So that diner, I'll link to the picture below if you don't know what we're talking about. And Alice is waiting there because like obviously she's like seen the future and like knows how this is going to go down. And she's like, you've been keeping me waiting a long time. And he's like, I'm sorry about that, ma'am.
And he thinks she's going to attack him at first.
But then he's like, okay, wait. There's another option here. I do want to give a little shout out to the Twilight short films again in this situation because like Jasper sucks, but the Jasper and Alice short films are cute as fuck and just like fabulous. And specifically this one is really funny because like they walk in, like they sit down, and then it does the same sort of twist that Breaking Dawn Part 2 does, where it like shows Alice's vision, but makes you think it's like happening. So like Alice has a vision of like the waitress like getting a paper cut or something, and then like Jasper going crazy. So like, and then she like flashes back and she's like, oh no, like let's go. Like, and so that it doesn't happen. It's really great. Anyway, I really enjoy the Twilight short films. Once again, plugging those. They're really fun.
I don't think I've watched that one. I need to.
I really like that one. It's like it's like super short. I think it's like 4 minutes. Like, and it's literally just like Alice and Jasper meeting for the first time.
So yeah. Jasper's backstory. And this is all to say that Jasper like is the one who knows how to fight newborns, and so he's going to give them all like little lessons.
They call Tanya's coven, and Tanya's coven blames just Irina, but like I personally think Tanya's still a little salty about Edward rejecting her.
No.
Basically, no. They're like, hey, can you guys come help us? Because like there's like 20 newborns and like, you know, we're like, we know how to fight, but like, you know, there's still a lot of them. Can you come help? And Tanya's coven is like, no. Irina was in love with Laurent, and the wolves killed Laurent, and you won't let us kill the wolves, so we're not gonna help you. Hope you die. XOXO. Tanya, Kate, and Irina. Whatever. So they're shit out of luck. We haven't talked about Renee very often in Eclipse because she hasn't made that much of an appearance, but just when you forgot about her, she's ready to demonstrate how much of a shit mother she is again. Renee isn't coming to Bella's high school graduation.
And we find out,
to be fair, Phil broke his femur and he can't move.
But the important thing here is that Alice is like, oh, Bella, bad news. Renee was going to surprise you for your graduation, but she can't make it now because Phil broke it. So just the concept of a parent being able to surprise their child by showing up at their graduation, like
this is your only child. It's your only child. What? Yeah, so Renee is just back to remind you why you should not feel bad for her at all that Bella is about to ditch her by becoming a vampire. So now Jacob and Bella hang out, but Jacob's really tired, so he's taking a nap. I'd also like to point out that we get a little nod that Billy's been hanging out with Sue, and I would like to point out further that it has only been a few months since Harry Clearwater, Sue's husband, tragically died, and Billy is already moving in He's
Yeah.
already moving in on her. What
Yeah.
the fuck? In the movies, it's Charlie and Sue that get together. Like, it's
No,
like,
Allison. I'm pretty sure. No, Allison. Charlie and Sue do get together. It's a canon love triangle that no one else seems to
oh
recognize besides
no.
me.
I
Well,
thought it
I've
was
seen
just Billy and
people.
Sue. I didn't think Charlie
No,
was
they
there.
fight about it. There's like a little tension, like about who's gonna like
Oh.
push. Yeah, no.
Who's going to push themselves on
I've
the
always
widow
picked up on this.
first?
Yeah, no, when Charlie wins,
Wow.
but
Well, obviously, he has the mustache. Okay. And whatever.
yeah, they're like fighty at the wedding.
So while Jacob is sleeping, Bella is watching a cooking show because she's like, I've never put this much effort into Charlie's dinner as like this person on this cooking show is doing. And I'm like, bitch, you've been marinating steaks. What do you mean?
Yeah,
You put a lot of effort into Charlie's dinner. Like, you put more effort into Charlie's dinner than I've ever put into like my own dinner. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Bella's also thinking about how she wants Edward to transform her. And I just want to emphasize that it's because she wants Edward's venom flowing through her system. And I just think that's really funny.
Oh, this is the section that I was taking notes while like having my eyes closed. So yeah, it's very
Yeah,
PC.
Rachel was listening to this book and taking notes directly after getting LASIK eye surgery. She was just lying in the dark in her room typing
I was
blind.
doing pretty good until I somehow turned on like a different like monospaced font. So you should like put that in, like my attempts. Oh, it's just like
this we'll
cross out Jacob. All right, so Jacob and Bella hang out, and Jacob tells Bella he's in love with her.
Bella's like, dude, like, no, like, I don't feel that way about you. And Jacob is like, well, do you want me to go away and never see me again? And Bella is like, no. And Jacob is like, see?
That's exactly what
like,
I was going to say. Yeah.
Sir,
doesn't prove anything.
The argument that you think it is. Like, I have a lot of friends that I would be very sad if they went away and I never saw them again. But that doesn't mean I'm in love with them. What?
I know. And then Bella's like, I forget what she says, but Jacob's like, you could have me the way I am or not at all. And Bella's like, that's mean. And Jacob's like,
Bella's basically like, stop making me uncomfortable by bringing this up. Like, I've told you no.
And then another sexual assault warning
on the page.
Yeah. So Jacob grabs her chin, holding it too tight. She tries to say no, but like physically can't because again, she's holding her chin too tight, which Edward did back in Twilight.
Yeah.
Can I say? This is a running theme.
She tries to say no, but he kisses her before she can get out the word.
And then she's literally fighting him and he doesn't notice. She's like, he doesn't seem to notice. It seems to aggravate him and make him push harder.
He notices. She tries to push him away and that only makes him angrier and kiss her harder. And this is, by the way, a recurring theme because they kiss again later, like near the end of the book. And once again, we have a description of Jacob getting like turned on by her being uncomfortable, like whatever. And like,
is it
like that making him more like frenzied and I was like, it's
and then Bella finally like literally shuts down and like just goes limp, which is a victim response. That's like very common. And I'm like, does Stephenie know that? Like, does she know that's like a typical response, or does she just think that's a normal occurrence?
I just think she thinks like, oh, this is the next strategy for like.
And Bella's like, I just waited for him to stop, and the anger seemed to fade.
So no.
And then she's like, I hate you, and like runs away. And he's like, that's good. Hate is a strong emotion.
No. I'm sorry. She punches him, Rachel.
Oh,
don't forget about that. Yeah. She punches him and breaks her hand. And quite frankly, I'm like, she should have come back with a bulldozer and just like taken Jacob out. Like she should have come back with a fucking tank and just rolled right over that motherfucker. But she's like, ow, you broke my hand. And Jacob is like, Bella, you broke your hand. And I'm like, Gas Lady McGee, what the fuck do you mean? No, she was like, it's self-defense. It's like the purest form of self-defense. You assaulted her and she defended herself. Anyway. Bella's broken her hand. Jacob takes her back to her house. Charlie is like on his side. He's like, good for you, bro. Like that you made the move. And I'm like, again, clearly she didn't like it.
Yeah. And then he finds out about Bella's broken hand. And he's like, do you want to press charges? Jacob. Does Jacob want to press charges?
Like, You know, I'm just going to bring this up now. Later, after this conversation, like, Charlie is like, oh, like, he does at one point, he is like, well, you know what? Like, if someone kisses you against your will, like, you should be able to defend herself. But he's saying this in the context of like, oh, I need to teach you how to punch. You need to keep your thumb inside your fist. And I was like,
outside.
no.
Oh, he says to put it inside?
The real thing, putting your thumb inside your fist is the best way to get your thumb broken.
Wait, are you sure?
Charlie,
the wrong
yes.
Yeah.
Because I was like wildly, like, I was like, what? No, that's the opposite. But I'm like, who the fuck naturally, like, listener, make a fist right now. How many of you, when you make a fist, naturally put your thumb inside your fingers? Like, don't keep it outside. Like, that just feels so unnatural to me. It's like you're getting ready to punch her. Like, I just don't understand.
Insane.
But yeah, Charlie gives her the exact opposite advice.
Yeah, like I remember being like taught that by either like dad or like karate, and like being worried that I was like doing something, like thinking that I was missing something because I was doing it. Like I was doing it the right way, but I was like,
yeah,
is there something I'm not missing? Like, why are they telling me this like obvious advice? Like I must be like not.
Folks, always keep your thumb outside of your fingers when you're punching. Otherwise, you will break your thumb. Thank you. XOXO. We read it one night.
Even if they're your dad.
Yeah, don't listen to cops ever, basically, is what I've learned from this book. Cops give terrible advice in all aspects of life. Except for when Charlie was like, you should hang out with your friends and not just your boyfriend. That was good advice.
But like it's failing to do his job.
Yeah. Okay. Jacob is also like, you kissed me back. And I was like, Jacob can choke. Like, Bella's like, I was not kissing you back. I literally tried to push you away, and when that didn't work, I shut down. Like, what about that is kissing you back? You fucker.
And Jacob's like, that was a good kiss. I think I can tell the difference. And I'm like, I think you can't. Like, what?
No. Like, what? Yeah. And it really pisses me off. I think the reason that, like, I still come out of this team Edward, even though Edward I mean, ultimately I'm team, like, no one, but if I have to pick, like, team Edward, is because the book never calls out, like, never really admits how shitty this is of Jacob to do. Twice. He does this again, by the way. Like, the book never really interrogates that. And I just, like, I think it's, like, the same thing, like, why, like, you know, like, other books, like, other characters really, like, for example, the love hypothesis, like, like, does at the end of the book get, like, called out for, like, just being the worst. But, like, the whole book, I was, like, so frustrated with On, and I think I, like, still would have been frustrated with her even if, like, if she hadn't been called out. Like, that is like one of my biggest pet peeves, is when, like, a character is the worst and, like, doesn't get, the book never points out, like, the book doesn't seem to know that they're the worst. Like, nobody in the book ever points that out.
Right. Despite, like, literally, Bella does literally say, like, it was assault. Like, it's just not treated as such by anyone else.
It's just
or
like
really
a joke. Like, it's like, haha, Bella's overreacting. Like, no.
Right.
It's literally assault.
I found the Charlie thumbs inside your fist thing, and I think it's a matter of inflection. Like, I think so he says, no matter what side I'm on,
the way Ileana delivers it is that he's saying it.
No,
seriously.
If someone kisses you without your permission, you should be able to make your feelings clear without hurting yourself. You didn't keep your thumb inside your fist, did you? No, Dad. That's kind of sweet in a weird way, but I don't think lessons would have helped. And the way you're reading it is like, you didn't keep your hand. No.
I know, that's the way Ileana reads it, though. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that's the correct one. I'm not saying she does it correctly, but I'm saying the way Ileana, the audiobook, presents it is that Charlie is giving
You're
that
thinking,
advice.
You didn't keep your hand inside your fist, did you? Like, yeah. It's did you?
That's how it's delivered.
I think he's saying. So anyway, for the record, so everyone,
Ileana giving the poor advice.
Yeah, thumb outside of fist, gang. Just in case anyone's at all unclear about that.
And in case you ever need to punch someone, just know.
Yeah. So now it's time for the graduation party, right?
Wait, and so Edward comes. I just like this moment. Edward comes in and he's like, if you ever deliver her back to me in less than the perfect position that I left her in, I will break your fucking jaw. And I was like, yeah, nice. Yep. I like this. This is some antagonism I can get behind. And we also, unfortunately, establish the criteria of, he's like, Edward's like, don't kiss her again. And Jacob is like, what if she asks me to? And he's like, wait for her to, like, ask you to. So
it should be a given.
Unfortunately, we have that criteria now put in.
What do you mean?
Like, Edward gives her his permission, basically, for Jacob to kiss her, like, if Bella asks him.
Well, yeah. Isn't that just
I know, but it sets up
but then
the manipulation later that
that's
happens.
true. Anyway, it's time for the convoluted graduation party that Bella obviously doesn't want, but Alice is going to throw anyway.
No. Before this, I'm sorry. No, before this. Well, Bella and Edward are making out at one point, and I just like I don't know. I forget what context this comes up in, but I just have the note that like horny Bella is the reason she's considering postponing vampire transformation. She's like, oh wait, like what if I want to have sex as a human instead of like I think because she's like thinking of the newborns and how they're like they have
only
like
care
such
about one
bloodlust. She's like,
thing.
oh, I'm not going to care about making out with Edward.
Yeah. Newborns only care about one thing. And Bella has the brain blast. She's like, we know that someone broke into my house, a vampire, and we know that there's lots of vampires in Seattle. What if, now this is pretty crazy here, all right? It's pretty crazy. What if they're connected? Oh, that's a big one. And no one else has thought of this, like literally. And she tells this to Alice, and Alice is like, oh my God, this is revolutionary. But they don't want to tell Edward until after graduation so that they don't like ruin graduation or whatever. He'll freak out. So,
but this is another one of those things where I'm like, wait, they didn't figure this out until now? And also, so spoiler alert, eventually it comes to terms that all three of the things, Victoria, the vampire in her room, the vampires in Seattle, they're all connected. And I thought this was the point in which they figure out it's Victoria, but no, they don't even figure out it's Victoria until like the day before the final standoff.
They're like, oh, Victoria must be like completely out of the picture. Like, why would she care at all? And it's like, why would she not care? Like, what? Where do you think she went? What?
Yeah.
Like,
what she was in the area like a week ago.
Right. Like she was like swimming, taking her like weekly laps over to Bella, like about to slurp her up after the cliff diving incident. Like, I don't understand. What? Anyway, so Edward, they go to graduation. Like Bella's like, oh, Charlie's so mad that like Edward's riding to graduation with us. Like, oh, so annoying. But I'm like, why the fuck wouldn't Edward just go with his own parents and Alice? Like, what? Like, I don't know. I just want to leave her alone.
Jessica, so in the book, Eric is the valedictorian and gives the commencement speech. But in the movies, it is Jessica Stanley because we stan Jessica Stanley in the movies. Mm-hmm. And I would like to say, I would like to admit something mildly embarrassing. As someone, I too gave a speech at my high school graduation. And when I was writing that speech, because you had to audition, because we didn't have like a valedictorian, you had to audition. And as I was writing the speech, I was like gathering ideas. I watched Jessica Stanley's commencement speech in the movie for inspiration. Like
iconic.
I cannot pretend like I to this day legitimately think it's actually a pretty good speech. Anyway, just would like to get that off my chest.
As you should, in a country. Also, Bella is like, I have nothing to wear. Like, like Bella, not like
her
other
wardrobe
girls,
has been
depleted.
Cleared.
And Alice kindly gets her a nice little like sweater skirt set. And can I just say that this is Forks in June, and we were there in May, and it was like very warm and nice in shorts weather. So like, I don't think it'd be very pleasant to be wearing a sweater set to your high school graduation underneath a robe. Like, anyway. No. So Alice obviously just want Edward to know, but Edward can read her mind. So we find out that this whole time in graduation, she's been translating the battle hymn of the Republic into Arabic. And then she moves on to sign language, which is like pretty sick. Like Alice knows sign language. Edward too.
So Bella then does tell Edward, and Edward is like, gotta go brood and figure shit out. So Bella is forced to go to dinner with Charlie alone. And they go to the Lodge, which is like the only fancy restaurant in town or whatever. And the only reason I bring this up is because so everyone else has gone there because it's the only fancy restaurant in town. And Bella is like, she's done. Like she wants to go back to like, she wants to go to the graduation party. She's like, hey, we gotta go. I gotta figure out like what's going on. And Charlie is just like talking like to all the people, all the parents, and he's like socializing and chatting, and it gave me such flashbacks to church.
Oh my god.
Every Sunday when Dad would like get his cup of coffee and like be socializing, and I would just be like in the corner, like partially hidden behind a plant, just being like, I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go.
We should just
It
take
got to the point,
cars.
listener, that we started to take 2 cars so that we could
Yeah.
leave him behind.
I mean, it just made sense because he also would like volunteer like afterwards and do some
Yeah,
kind
he
of
would,
like
like, do some,
counting
like,
thing.
accounting shit for the church, so,
Yeah.
like yeah,
Yeah.
just and sometimes we would have to stay, like, and try to, like, be busy during while he was doing, like, the account, like,
Right.
it was so annoying,
It's
yeah.
like I want you to have that time, but also like get me out of here.
I wanna leave.
I want to go home. Yeah.
Please, I wanna go home.
So funny to see it. So,
Yeah.
that's great. But the lodge just reminded me of we had a similar restaurant, and
Oh,
then like
yeah.
Applebee's became the replacement once it like
Yeah.
downsized.
No,
But very
it was a
sad.
similar it
It's
was like a
great.
family
Yeah,
restaurant because our area
the
used to be like
only place.
entirely dairy farms like 50 years ago.
Yeah,
And so that was like still one of the local dairy
yeah.
farm holdouts. So they had like really good ice cream and also like
Mm-hmm.
dinner.
And
And
like
like that's where
yeah,
everyone went.
yeah. It was like the one like big like yeah like
It was
after
like the one
like
fancy place.
every single
Yeah.
like
That's where you went to.
play, sports games, like fucking
Yeah.
parent teacher night, whatever.
There's always one in like small towns.
Yeah.
And we're not even as small as Forks. So like
Yeah.
now there's like several of them. Now there's like several fancy places to go.
Yeah, but none of them are like it's not like the big community gathering spot. We kind of like don't have that anymore, I feel
No, we've
like.
kind of been splintered. Yeah, like the
Yeah.
theater kids, the sports, like the high school kids go to Applebee's, but like if you're gonna
Mhm.
go somewhere for graduation, there's like 20 different like
Yeah.
restaurants.
And so Bella like this whole time is like she just like doesn't want to she just like wants to go home and she's like I've been picking off pieces of my burger and stuffing them in my napkin when I'm sure Charlie wasn't looking. Just like this is just like the number like 10th time that like Bella just doesn't eat for some reason. Like it's there's
She
no
doesn't
reason.
ever. She like is constantly not eating. That's why she's 110 pounds, I guess. Yeah, so they finally go. Charlie drops her off at the graduation party and like obviously like gets out of there as soon as possible because he and Bella both hate parties, but Bella is the one that always has to go to them because having Alice as a sister-in-law would be a nightmare.
Mhm.
And she goes and is like super sick. Like the Cullens have this like long winding like driveway and it's like 3 miles of lights of like fairy lights in the trees and it's like so visually cool. And they show up and like the
Yeah.
inside of the house has been turned into basically like a nightclub and it's
It
like
just now you just said it reminds me of there's a similar scene I feel like in Crazy Rich Asians, like both the book and the movie, like where
oh
they're
yeah,
going to the
yeah.
grandmother's house and it's just like they're like in the middle of like the jungle basically, but then all of a sudden it's like this crazy
Oh, the
awesome
guards
house,
at the
the
gate.
lights
Yeah.
and the gardens. Yeah.
Yeah, so they show up. Everyone, the whole town shows up because
Mhm.
everyone wants to see the inside of the Cullens house.
Mhm.
And then Jacob shows up. Jacob has the nerve to show up to the graduation party,
Yeah.
and then he manipulates her into forgiving him and then manipulates her into like being grateful for the ugly ass bracelet he gives her. Yeah, he's basically like he like acts like his feelings are hurt when she's like ignoring him because she's also trying to like Alice. She saw that Alice had a vision right before Jacob and his friends showed up.
Mhm.
So she's like trying to figure. She's like, oh my god, there's like more news. Like I have to go like ask her. So she's trying to find Alice, and Jacob is like, oh, you're hurting my feelings, Bella. And I'm like, well, Jacob, considering that she couldn't hurt your face because you're a werewolf, maybe you deserve to have your feelings hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
And then he gives her that ugly ass bracelet.
Well, first he quote grabs her good wrist and yanks her through the crowd.
Yeah.
That's how he gets her
She has a
alone.
bad wrist, listener, just to remind you, because she punched him in the face and broke her hand.
Yeah, after, yeah.
Yeah. So he gets her a bracelet that has like a little carved wolf on it, which is actually objectively cool, like a carved wolf. But the bracelet itself is very ugly.
Isn't it just like a charm bracelet?
Yes, but it's an ugly one.
What is it?
Like in the movie, it's ugly. It just has very
No.
big, like just the chain itself. Not my taste, and my taste is really the only one that matters here. Basically, all the jewelry in this book is ugly as sin. Like this whole Eclipse is like the subtitle for Eclipse is like a book of shitty jewelry. Like that, like
Yeah.
that's it. But yeah, so the vampires and the werewolves team up in this. They decide they're like, oh my god, the newborns are coming. Like the newborns have decided to come for Bella.
The cops are coming. The cops are
The
coming.
cops are coming. The cops are coming.
Mhm.
And they're like, shit. And then the werewolves are like, hang on, a bunch of vampires that we can actually kill? That'll be great. And they all decide to team up. And Bella's like, no, you guys are all going to get killed. And everyone's like, shut the fuck up, Bella. And so they all decide to meet after the party for some little newborn fight training.
Yeah. I just enjoyed the imagery of like it's like Alice and Jacob are grinning at each other, but simultaneously wrinkling their noses against the snow.
Yeah.
They're like gleefully like, oh, we're gonna kick some butt. Yeah.
Bella also at this point calls the werewolves oversized, overmuscled children. And yes, that's exactly what they are.
And who made them like that? Stephenie.
Also at this point, right before like the fight training is like Fight Club's about to begin, Bella now figures out, she's like, oh my God, what if it's Victoria? Like those two things are connected. What if this is connected too? And Edward is like, what an interesting theory. And I'm like, just, you guys are these vampires are supposed to be like the smartest beings on the planet. Yeah. Like they're supposed to have the fucking brain processing power of Scarlett Johansson in that movie where she takes that pill that lets her use 100% of her brain. Like that's what vampires are supposed to do. But they never use it.
No. Yeah. I mean, I guess they're like, oh, this kind of thing happens like all the time, like the newborn army. But like once Bella's room came into it, and also just like, why have you forgotten about Victoria? Like no one's on Victoria's case, right? Like Eddie spent like 6 months in New Moon, like ostensibly trying to track her and like failing
when
miserably.
She went to Texas and probably got the idea for the vampire newborn army.
Oh my God. Or she went to Texas? That she went to like South.
He tracked her to Texas and then she like doubled back, but then he went to Brazil to brood in an attic.
Yeah, with the rats and the smoke smells and the spiders. So they have this training meetup. And I never realized that it's literally at 3 a.m. for some reason. Like, for what? And, like, can I just, like, why are the wolves able to, like, function on so much less sleep than Bella can?
Because they have, like, super healing. I don't know.
But why? Is that part of their – that's not, like, an explicit part of their –
I don't know. It's silly. Whatever. The wolves are just observing the vampires like fighting, and Jasper's giving them all training. And I would just like to point out that like in the movie, Rosalie's look in this scene is top tier. Like it's absolutely fabulous. Nikki Reed never looks better as Rosalie than in this scene. Wonderful. She's just wearing like sporty clothes and a braid, like a loose braid. Like it's just really great. Like great costuming and hair and makeup decision.
Fair enough.
The only one in this entire franchise for Rosalie.
Oh yeah, I see. Yeah.
Okay, anyway. And then during this training, Bella pets Jacob on the head, like after training to like say goodbye. She's like, goodbye, Wolf Jacob. And she also thinks, wow, it's so much easier to hang out with Jacob when he can't talk, when he can't like pressure me into doing things I don't want to do. But also I can't stop thinking about how in the movie, because the wolves are CGI, like the behind the scenes of this scene of her petting Jacob is just like this poor man in a green morph suit, like bending over so that Kristen Stewart can pet his head.
Oh my God.
I was just like, how did any like that's why actually all the actors in the Twilight movies like constantly look so constipated. It's because like they're struggling so hard to like hold in a laugh
the whole time.
The whole time. Anyway, it's the next day. Bella has slept the whole day long. She wakes up. She makes Pop-Tarts. Rachel, how do you feel about the fact that she puts the Pop-Tarts in the toaster? She toasts the Pop-Tarts.
Yeah, I honestly did not think that anyone toasted Pop-Tarts. And I was like literally like, wow, it's so bold of like the makers of Pop-Tarts to name and brand their entire thing around something that no one would ever do. But apparently some people do toast Pop-Tarts. I don't know. I'm intrigued. As long as you eat the iced ones, like I can respect you. Like whatever, hot, cold. For me, Pop-Tarts have always been like a road snack. Like I'm never just going to sit down and eat a Pop-Tart at home. It's like you take it to school, you take it in the car. Like it's not, so it can't be toasted. And
I once ate so many strawberry Pop-Tarts on a road trip that they made me car sick, and then I haven't eaten a Pop-Tart since.
Frosted strawberry and frosted cinnamon.
The cinnamon like marshmallow.
Not marshmallow. No, cinnamon brown sugar.
There's a s'mores one that's pretty good.
I don't know. But anyway, good for Bella.
Okay, so Edward is like, can I give you a gift for your charm bracelet? He doesn't give it to her yet, but basically he gives her like an ugly ass diamond heart, which just like further emphasizes how ugly the jewelry is in this fucking book. And my question for you is, he's constantly like, oh no, they're just hand-me-downs, like they're from my mom. Like I have, for some reason, I have my mom's jewelry collection. Like, so do we think that's true?
I don't know. I mean,
Or do we think he's just like secreting diamonds onto her and telling her that they're hand-me-downs?
yeah, like because I thought his parents were like not super like this.
No,
She's
no, no.
Bella's
He was like upper middle
but
class.
not like. But Bella's like this must be a 5 carat diamond if it's a diamond, which is insane. Like how like a 5 carat diamond today is like I mean depending on the cut I guess, but like that's like fucking
Yeah.
like that's insane. So like I mean on the one hand, there's like no reason he couldn't have gotten his mom's ring.
Also, like, why would she have that? Why would his mom have like a random diamond charm
Yeah, like
in
maybe
the
he got
shape
it
of a heart?
made into it.
I don't
Like
know. But like the description of the engagement ring, which I guess we'll talk about in next episode, like it doesn't sound like an engagement ring that would exist in the Edwardian area.
no. Yeah,
Whatever.
I don't know. I don't
I
think
don't
he
know.
would
I
just
think Edward's full of shit.
I think Edward's full of shit. I don't think he would explicitly lie. Like that's not his MO is like to explicitly
Maybe what
lie.
happened was that Carlisle felt so bad about like robbing Edward of his life that he actually bought a bunch of diamonds and was like, "These were your parents. These were your mom's diamonds."
And Edward's like a little boy. He has like no idea.
Yeah, Edward's like, "Okay, not going to question anything Carlisle says ever." And then Edward's telling her all that. He's like, yeah, looking in the wolf's head, like it's like a soap opera, like all the shit that like goes down. And so we learn about two things here that frankly would have made much more interesting books.
Mm-hmm.
We learn that Leah's a werewolf. This is when we learn. And then we also learn about Embry's like secret parentage.
Oh yeah. So basically, so we know that Leah and Sam dated and that Emily was Leah's cousin. And now poor Leah has to be a werewolf and not only be in Sam's head, but have Sam and everyone else be in her head. And Edward's basically like, she's making life so much harder for the rest of them. Like, I don't think she deserves your sympathy. Like, she's being deliberately malicious. And I'm like, all right. Or we could acknowledge that this is extremely shitty. Like, why are we immediately turning on Leah?
It's been like less than a year.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, or it's been like a year basically since like Sam dumped her. Like she's allowed to still be upset about it.
And I guess she's being like mean to the rest of them, like unrelated from that. But like, I don't know. I
I
can't
just feel
imagine
like
that they were nice to her. Like,
right,
I don't
just
know.
feel like there's probably extenuating circumstances. Like she's being mean to them because they're constantly having obnoxious thoughts, but like they're like, no, I'm not. Like I'm just being totally normal and she's overreacting. But like, I don't know. I feel like Leah's totally justified. I feel like they're all being dicks. They're probably also all being weird because like she constantly has to like essentially get naked in front of them.
Right.
And they're probably like super weird about that too.
Yeah.
And like just super weird about the fact that like there's a girl in their boys club.
Right. 100%. Like again, what was the point of creating this character entirely to shit on her? Like there's no other story arc here. And then the Embry thing is that, so we mentioned earlier that all of the wolves are descended from that one guy, right? So they all have to like come from like, and so the only 3 remaining people in that previous generation were Billy Black, Old Quill, and Sam's dad. But Embry, his mom came from another tribe and like moved to the Quileute reservation. And so everyone assumed that like his like bio dad was from the other tribe. But then Embry turned into a fucking wolf. So they're like, all right, well, that leaves only 3 possibilities. Like his dad has to either be Billy Black, Quill, or Sam's dad, all of whom were married at the time. And so they all like Sam's dad is like shitty, like he left.
He's a piece
so they
of
want
shit
to
who like
assume it's
abandoned
him.
them, basically.
But also I'm like, you also thought it was impossible for girls to be wolves until like a week ago. So like, why couldn't there be some other situation where like the gene is dormant and like it comes to light? Like you could have been some ancestor.
It's been like 1,000 years, let's say, like give or take, like at least probably 1,000 years since the OG werewolf. And like the Embry's mom came from, what is it, the Macaw tribe, which is described in the legends. Like the Quileutes and the Macaws, like in the
They've
world.
Been tight
I don't
for
know
a
whether
long time.
this is like they've been next to each other. You're telling me that like not once one of the Quileute, like there wasn't like intermixing.
You could so easily like the werewolf, if like in the modern day and like whatever, like the werewolf gene doesn't turn on unless there's vampires nearby, why couldn't there have been the gene and then his like ancestor just didn't happen to be around when the Cullens came by the last time, right? And so it never turned on, but he still has it.
Like I just don't understand. Like the implication that this werewolf gene is exclusively contained to the Quileutes is that the Quileutes are incredibly inbred.
Right. Right. The implication that it's exclusive to the Quileutes who happen to still be living on the reservation in 2005. Like, that's the thing.
Yes.
Like, how there must have been people. Like, not everyone exactly. Like, it's not like they weren't allowed to, like, it's not like no one could
It
ever
doesn't
move
make any
in or out.
sense.
It doesn't. No, it's stupid.
No. Whatever. Anyway, I would like a book about like Embry's parent, like the trip to the DNA test,
right?
For
Like
Embry.
Yeah. Again, yeah. Like, come on. Why does no one? I don't know. I guess DNA testing this
Or just
situation.
cop to it. Frankly, like, why doesn't Billy
Right.
cop? Like, if it's Billy, like, his wife is, like, not to be a dick, but his wife is dead.
Yeah. Well, that should just mean that it's not any of them, you know? Like,
Right. Yeah. Like, why
are
can't
we
you just fucking cop
assuming?
to it?
I don't know. I guess you can't really do a DNA test when they have like 27 chromosomes or whatever.
I mean,
like,
Carlisle could, because he does a DNA
that's
test on, like,
true.
all of them. So,
Yeah. What the hell? God,
yeah,
can't believe I
whatever.
didn't think of that.
Whatever. This is at the time that Bella, she asked Edward to stay with her during the fight because she's like, I don't want you to get hurt. And you said, like, with the wolves, it's going to be super easy.
Yeah, she does a pretty good job. Like, I feel like this is an Edward level convoluted argument that she then flips around on him because she's like, either
she like leads him into a trap, and she's like,
Yeah.
surely it's not this easy. Like, surely he's going to see this coming, but then he
Yeah.
doesn't.
She's like, either it's more dangerous than you want me to know, in which case it would help for me to be there in the clearing so that like I can distract them, or it'll be so easy that someone, aka you, could sit out. And everyone's like, you got me there, like rats. And this starts their whole like compromise. They love saying the word compromise, their new buzzword from here on out.
Yeah.
Like Edward's like, you gave me two alternatives and I chose the one I could live with. That's how compromise is supposed to work.
Edward's like, I'm so healthy. We're communicating. Like,
And
look
then
at me.
Get ready to be sick of me being the word compromise.
Yeah. And horny Bella has been dormant like briefly up until now, and she's like awakening from her slumber at this agreement because Edward and Bella are going to have like a 2-day sleepover basically. And then we'll end on this. They have like a second Fight Club night, and Jacob hums as like sort of like he and Bella are communicating, and it is wilder than a cat's purr. So,
but conveying the same sense of contentment.
Yes.
Purring.
So important. Jacob is actually a cat in a dog's body. Actually, that's an insult to cats. So I don't know what the fuck he is. He's like a fucking swan in a wolf's body. He's just an asshole in a cuddly form. Yeah. No, but swans are assholes.
Yeah. God. Yeah. Anyway, on that note.
And on that note, we're wrapping up. Tune in for part 3.
Yeah. Allison, where can they find us?
On Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at We Read It One Night, on Twitter at We Read It Podcast, and you can email us wereaditonenight@gmail.com to let us know if you, what did I ask people to tell? Oh, let us know whether you think Taylor Swift is gay, and also let us know any listener suggestions for books that you would like us to do. This whole summer we've been doing listener suggestion summer, so keep them coming. Also, we have merch on Redbubble, and I always forget to mention it, but it's always in the show notes. You can buy some pretty sick merch, and I am probably going to add some more soon, possibly by the time this episode comes out. Who knows? And that's it. That's all. Also, leave us a rating and review wherever you listen. Rachel, what can they put in their review as a little nod that they're leaving their review during this episode?
The phone number to your local domestic violence hotline.
No.
You can text 911 in a lot of places nowadays, people.
It's true.
Yeah. I don't know. They could put,
what animal do you think is living inside Jacob's bowl form? What animal do you think Jacob sees?
What city do you think Leah should move to when she finally gets free of this hellhole?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you would like to add some spicy thing, who do you think should be her girlfriend?
And it doesn't have to just be like, we'll open it up to like the floor of
you can make an original character.
Original characters.
Feel free.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift and Leah.
Match made in heaven.
It's all coming together. It's all coming together. It's all coming together.
Yeah.
All right. Catskill coming next time.
Yep. Godspeed, comrades.
Godspeed.